Hello everyone, I am Angeli, your reporter, and I am very excited to bring you today's topic, areas and principles of growth and personal development. Growth and development. Growth involves physical changes in height and weight and appearance of the body, while development refers to the change in functional ability such as cognitive, motor, and psychological aspect of the individual. Growth terms represent a purely physical sense of a person. Example, the height, weight, size, and length. Growth is quantitative in nature. It starts with conception but ends at some particular age. Development implies the overall change in shape, form, or structure, along with the function of the organ. Development is both quantitative and qualitative in nature. It is a continuous process starting from the womb and end with the tomb. In an era of unprecedented change, particularly stemming from rapid technological progress, what can we do to ensure the learners have the skills they need in order to succeed in all areas of their life? What are we preparing our learners for? The 5 areas of development is a holistic approach to learning that strives to break down the silos in education and ensure the development of learning in all 5 areas of development. And these are physical, mental, relational, spiritual, and emotional. Through this process of development, we hope to inspire our learners and equip them with the skills and processes that will help them navigate new concepts and challenges that the future might present. Physical development. Physical development helps achieve optimum bodily performance. It focuses on health, fitness, and sports. Physical development includes all the ways our bodies perform internally and externally. Of course, diet and exercise are common considerations, but even more, nuanced factors such as surrounding, environment, and even personal hygiene affect our overall physical development. Mental development. It maximizes your memory efficiency and capacity with mental development. It emphasizes communication, comprehension, critical thinking, and curiosity to enhance academic learning. This one is all about the accumulation and application of knowledge. As a result, we can also include the fulfillment of curiosity and experimentation as part of one's mental development. Ultimately, we should desire wisdom, which can be summarily defined as the result of combining knowledge and experience. Relational development or social development. Build new connections and groups with relational development. It supports students to get involved in their communities, work toward common goals, and understand themselves and others. Of all arenas in the personal development space, the ability to establish meaningful connections with others may be the most important. As the timeless saying goes, your net worth is your net worth. And the declaration of the stated to the implications of the expression less justice than deserve. The relationships you cultivate have the potential to help you overcome challenges in every other area of development. Spiritual development. Overcome your inner shortfalls with spiritual development. It focuses on core values, awareness, and practice rather than on a particular religion. Development, by this definition, involves constant assessing and sharpening of identity traits such as personality, practices, convictions, and consciousness against definite and conceptual ideas of conduct and outlook. The interaction molds ongoing conduct and views of ourselves as well as the world around us as strides are made toward the ideal result. Emotional development. Learn to best express yourself with emotional development. It encourages learners to pay attention to their emotion in order to identify, understand, and express them positively and productively. The ability to accept, process, and respond to your emotion and those of others is more important than ever. The great news is advancement in therapy techniques and movement toward progressive social standards make this easier and more acceptable to do now than even a decade ago.
We discussed the different areas of personal development. Now, let us proceed to the principles of growth and development. Principles of growth and development includes principle of continuity, principle of integration, principle of lack of uniformity in the developmental rate, principle of individual difference, principle of uniformity pattern, principle of proceeding from general to specific, principle of interaction between heredity and environment, principle of interrelation, principle of cephalocaudal, principle of proximo-distal, principle of predictability, principle of spiral versus linear advancement, principle of association of maturity and learning.
Principle of continuity. The development follows the principle of continuity, which means that development is a continuous process. It starts with prenatal and ends with death. In the early years of life, development consists of changes that lead the child to maturity, not only of body size and functioning, but also of behavior. Even after maturity has been attained, development does not end. Changes continue, which lead to the period of life known as old age. These changes continue until death ends the life cycle. Principle of integration. Development thus involves a movement from the whole to parts and from parts to the whole. And this way, it is the integration of the whole and its parts as well as the specific and general responses. It enables a child to develop satisfactorily in relation to various aspects or dimensions of his personality. Example: child first starts to learn hand movement, then finger movement, and then learn the movement of both hand and finger together. This is called integration. Principle of lack of uniformity in the developmental rate. Development through the continuous process but does not exhibit steadiness and uniformity in terms of the rate of development in the various development of personality or in the developmental periods and stage of life. Example: a person may have a high rate of growth and development in terms of height and weight, but may not have the same pace of mental and social development. Principle of individual difference. Every organism is a distinct creation in itself. One of the most important principles of development is that involves individual differences. There is no fixed rate of development, that all children will learn to walk is universal, but the time at which each child takes his or her first step may vary. An example is, all children will first sit up, crawl, and stand before they walk. But individual children will vary in regard to the timing or age at which they can perform these activities. Principle of uniformity pattern. Although developed does not proceed at a uniform rate and shows marked individual differences with regard to the process and outcome of various stages of development, yet it follows a definite pattern in one or the other dimension, which is uniform and universal with respect to the individual of a species. For instance, the development of language follows a somewhat definite sequence quite common to all human beings. Principle of proceeding from general to specific. While developing in relation to any aspect of personality, the child first pick up or exhibit general response and learn how to show specific and goal-directed responses afterwards. For instance, when a newborn infant cries, his whole body is involved in doing so, but as he develops, it is limited to the vocal cords, facial expressions, and eyes. Principle of interaction between heredity and environment. Development of a child is a process that cannot be defined wholly based on their heredity or environment. Both have to play an important role in development. There are arguments in favor of both. However, most of the psychologists agree that an interplay of these two factors leads to development. Where heredity decides or sets some limits of development, environmental influences complete the developmental process. Environmental influences provide space for multidimensional development through interaction with family, peers, society, and so on. Growth and development is a joint product of heredity and environment. Principle of interrelation. The growth and development in various dimensions like physical, mental, social, and etc. are interrelated and interdependent. Growth and development in any one dimension affects the growth and development of the child in other dimension. For example, children with above average intelligence are generally found to possess above average physical and social development. The lack of growth in one dimension diminishes the bright possibility in other dimensions. That is why the child having poor physical development tend to regress in emotional, social, and intellectual development. Principle of cephalocaudal. Development proceeds in the direction of the longitudinal axis. Development from head to foot or toe. That is why, before it becomes able to stand, the child first gains control over his head, arms, and then his legs. Principle of proximo-distal. Development of motor skills to start at the central body parts to outwards. This is why, in the beginning, the child is seen to exercise control over the large fundamental muscles of the arm and then the hand, and only afterwards over the smaller muscles of the fingers. Principle of predictability. Development is predictable, which means that with the help of the uniformity of pattern and sequence of development, we can go to a great extent forecast the general nature and behavior of a child in one or more aspect or dimension at any particular stage of its growth and development. We can know the particular age at which children will learn to walk, speak, and so on. For example, with the knowledge of the development of bones of a child, it is possible to predict his future structure or size. Principle of spiral versus linear advancement. The child doesn't proceed straight or linear on the path of development at any stage, never takes place with a constant or steady pace. After the child has developed to a certain level, there is likely to be a period of rest for consolidation of the development progress achieved till then. In advancing future, therefore, the development turns back and then moves forward again in a spiral pattern. Principle of association of maturation and learning. Biological growth and development are known as maturation. Biological changes involves changes in the brain and the nervous system which provide new abilities to a child. Development proceeds from simple to complex. In the beginning, a child learns through concrete objects and gradually moves to abstract thinking. These transitions happens because of maturation. For instance, if a child is keen to learn something and lacks maturity, then he will not be able to learn it. That is all for today. Thank you for listening.